thing is, I think Ents are actually very strong right now. I think that
Mm.
they've since losing Gumba, they've actually they seem to be playing better than they were. I don't know. I feel like students again with Smash, Twisted Minds. Like Twisted Minds haven't practiced with their roster.
Mm.
I think we've already probably seen it a lot, but there is a certain like caliber where you're someone that doesn't like to do content, doesn't like to stream, doesn't like to have any personality, but is also not quite good enough to play for like Falcons or Crazy Raccoon. You're like that tier like that third or fourth place player. You must just earn no money. Generally speaking, we've scrimmed Toronto for months, and it's always been pretty blow for blow. I think. Do you want me to get the actual percentage for you? Would you like that inside league?
Let's go. I'm here with ChrisTFer, head coach of Space Station Gaming, shortly before DreamHack Dallas. It's a little bit weird to call it DreamHack when it could be OWCS Dallas and whatnot. Like, what do you guys call it?
I don't know. We just call it Dallas. I think we don't even have just yet. We're going to Dallas. We're playing in Dallas. I don't think we attribute any other letters before it.
Right. Do you differentiate between the different circuits in terms of meaning, or is it just like one step at the time? Like, do you approach a Faceit League game much like an OWCS game?
No, the Faceit League games, generally speaking, we haven't prepped for. I think the teams that have Dallas have got because it's different map pools. I think is what fundamentally kills it. So we've basically been exclusively practicing Dallas maps against Dallas teams, and then we just kind of like play the Faceit games when we do. Like as of recording this, we have like Ents and Twisted Minds today, so those will be like the losable games for us. But I think for us, realistically, like whatever happens, we should be able to get like a top 4 seed and face it, even if we lose a few of them, which is still fine because you're still going to get into the playoffs, and that's all that really matters.
For sure. Now, how's preparation for Dallas going so far? Like, has anything changed over the last couple of weeks and run up to Dallas, or like when are you flying out? What is the preparation like, generally speaking?
Yeah, we've been kind of just like doing things as we always do, like 2 blocks a day, and we fly out on Wednesday the 29th, and then I think we have a media day on the 30th, and then I think we play on the 31st. So like for this line, it feels like the prep time and stuff is a little bit tighter than like World Cup or Overwatch League lands in the past. Normally, you get like a few days to get adjusted to jet lag and get like a few days practicing at the facility and stuff. Whereas this time, I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to practice on the 30th. I don't know. Like, there's like, I mean, the thing is, like, I could come on here and complain about like competitive integrity, but I also think it's like slightly like naive in a way because it's like imagine you work for like an independent company and your friend works for Google and you're like, oh well, Google has this like ping pong table and has this meditation room. It's like, well, yeah, but that's why not Google, you know? So it feels like, especially some of the Korean teams that have boot camps might be able to practice while we're flying because they get over earlier and they might be able to practice on the media day, which maybe we can't. But it is what it is at the end of the day.
Sure. Are they already over? Are they already practicing against them, or do you know when they're coming over?
Falcons have been over for about a week now, maybe slightly less. We have our Crazy Raccoon scrim on Sunday, so presumably they're flying either like yesterday, today, tomorrow, something like that, depending on when this interview comes out. But they're gonna get there like 2 or 3 days at least before us, and then presumably they have somewhere to practice because they're scrimming us. So I'm guessing this is done not like with Blizzard. I'm guessing Blizzard or Faceit aren't flying them over and giving them a practice facility. I'm assuming that they're sorting it out themselves, but. I mean, originally when the schedule was released, it looked like it was going to be really known for the Korean teams because they're going to have like a longer flight and more jet lag, but they've financially kind of worked their way around said problems.
For sure. How did the scrim so far go against Falcons?
We scrimmed them twice. We won one, we lost one. From everything that I've seen, I don't think they look like it's sometimes that like there's a few maps where they click and you're like, okay, this team's really good. But there's some maps when we scrim against Ents and they click and they look really good. Sometimes when you play Toronto, at least based on scrims. To be fair, like as a caveat, like the scrims against any NA and Korean team are always so scuffed because the ping situation is so. It's like both teams are playing on 100 minimum latency, and normally what happens is we alternate servers. So we tend to win on the EU maps and they tend to win on the NA maps. So there's a little bit of like take every result with a grain of salt. But I would say, like, based on what we've seen, like this idea that the Korean teams, unless it's just like a Falcons thing, are like miles ahead of the Western teams, I don't think seems to be true. And my feeling is that there might even be like 5 or 6 teams that have a chance of winning this tournament as of right now.
Okay, so this is your chance because like shit talk after the fact is pretty toothless, right? Do you think actually like NA and EMEA have a chance to like if you had to give it a percentage number, are Koreans still favorites or is it actually equal?
I think it's like 40% to Korea, 30% to NA, 30% to EU, something like that. Like, I think the other thing is that it's possible that Falcons are just like below where they should be, and that Crazy Raccoons are insane, and then maybe they come over and they roll everyone. But I don't know. I think that like the Korean teams are clearly really good, but I also think their like meta reading stuff is sometimes a bit crazy. Their like comp decisions are crazy, so I think they're super beatable. I really, really genuinely believe that there isn't anything that like if we have a good day and they also have a good day, but not quite as good a day, I think we'll win. Like I think like the gap between us and them isn't. I think people in their heads think the two Korean teams are locked for first and seconds, but I don't think that's the case at all.
Sure. Now it's currently Friday the 24th, so week to go until the tournament. We know from Overwatch League that a lot can change in the meta. What is the meta snapshot right now? What's being played?
A lot of teams, maybe the European teams, try a little bit of BAP comps, like the RAM comps that we won season 2 with. There is an influx of new Mauga comps which are being played. Like I think no Orisa means that Mauga has a better place in the meta. I think there is quite a bit of Venture being played, although that's like that's slightly awkward for now because there's like this Venture got buffed on live patch, but we're not playing on the buffed patch. Although to Blizzard's credit, we did actually get OPR, which might surprise you because I thought there's no chance we ever get an OPR ever again. I thought that was a meditation room from Google pipe dream. But we have it. There's a little bit like Farah is actually very frustrating and quite strong right now. The meta is actually really all over the place. I think that every team, I mean, this is what international tournament should be about. Every team comes in with their own meta read. Like you saw the leaked scrim from Crazy Raccoons all playing their ball comp. Like every team has a different read. Every team has different strengths. Like I think there's a lot of variety, and I think that's what makes like this system. Like this is the main selling point of the system is that instead of everyone conglomerating, that's definitely the right way to say that word, into like one, everyone agrees on the meta, like handshake. Every team has their own read. You know, like the EU teams have like a kind of distinct like. We tried to like play a little bit more BAP, obviously with Ghost and Landon. The NA teams are like kind of doing their own thing. The Korean teams are a little bit more like dive focused or like Mauga focused or whatever it is. You know, like I think that every team has a slight difference in how they read the meta, but also most teams, maybe minus like one or two, are actually pretty flexible. Like I'm seeing teams play like Winston, Mauga, Ram, like Sigma, all on different maps. I think we actually have a pretty open meta. I don't think it's locked in yet, and I suspect we don't have enough time where we'll actually see like a lock.
For sure. Now you were one of the teams, like historically, that just were confident enough in playing their own comps during these high pressure situations and playoffs and whatnot. Other teams usually sort of as their stuff doesn't work as well as they want to, they usually change towards the competition. Do you see this coming as well? Like currently, I feel like everyone's salivating at the idea that you're presenting here. Oh, we have so much diversity based on region, and like everyone has their idea. You know, how confident are you that that's going to be the case come DreamHack?
Genuinely really confident. I actually don't think teams anymore. Like, okay, imagine Crazy Raccoons beat everyone with their ball comp. No one's learning that. No one can play that comp like them. So like that's not an option for teams to copy that. They won't even consider it, you know? Like I don't see a team like M80 playing like Mauga, Lucio, Kiri, for example. I just feel like that's just not like what they're gonna do. I feel like most teams, like I think Toronto have still got an element of we'll just like follow what the other teams are doing, but they're also pretty good, so it might not be a bad thing for them. So I don't know. I actually don't think that'll happen.
Now, based on what you're saying about the strengths, especially of Falcons, who are in your part of the bracket, it sounds like you believe you got the weaker side of the bracket. Is that right?
Depends on how good Crazy Raccoons are, I think. Yeah, but in theory, yes. I think, to be honest, the main thing is I think Ents are actually very strong right now. I think that they've, since losing Gumba, they've actually they seem to be playing better than they were. And actually, we have more problems with Ents in the scrims than we do with Falcons right now. So I think there's a chance that like that Ents Falcons game is really close. I think there's obviously an additional like LAN factor, you know, like players like Ghost have never played on LAN before, whereas Falcons have definitely played on LAN before. Um, so I think there is like a pressure element, but I think that game has potential to be pretty close. And I feel like our game versus either of those teams should be close too. So I feel like our side of the bracket is pretty wide open.
Sure. Now, another question mark is around Twisted Minds, because it seems like that's an organization that has decided they don't want to take OWCS as seriously for obvious reasons. They have some roster changes that they can push through for OWCS. So, what do you think? Like, in which tier are they? Actually in the students of the game tier, or more
I
serious?
think I don't know. I feel like students of the game would smash Twisted Minds. Like Twisted Minds haven't practiced with their roster.
Hmm.
Like Slay hasn't played with that team since whenever the last one. Like Kisse isn't going. Like Libda as tank. Like they like even Admiral. Like you know. Well, actually, Admiral, I don't know. Like Skies. I don't know. Literally, the roster that they're playing, only two of those players scrim. You know. Like now they play with three new players, so they haven't prepped like the map pool at all. They haven't played. I think they have no chance really. Like they're good players, but if you don't like a mix showing up to a LAN against teams that are like taking it super seriously, I think you've got no chance.
Right. Now, yeah, of course, there's always the question around the favorites, right? And you said like 40% Korea. Do you have a gut feeling if it's Crazy Raccoons or Falcons that are going to show up in a better condition, considering like they were trading blows for the most part in those competitions in Korea, right?
I mean, you just would have to say Crazy Raccoons based off the fact they've won, but I don't know. I feel like most people will like go on podcasts and stuff, and they will talk about how they can see, oh, the Korean teams just look so clean. But I'm a big believer that no one actually can see the quality of Overwatch. Like we're all just lying. It's like I have a theory about art museums where everyone just pretends that like art is fancy, but no one actually like everyone just like sees a random painting, but like we all collectively buy into this idea that oh, it's so wonderful. I feel like Overwatch is the same. Like, oh, the quality, like the Korean game was so clean, whereas that EU game was so sloppy. It's like it's just what you predetermines like those teams, you know. So I don't know. I think on paper, you would probably argue that Korea is the strongest region based on history, and you would say that the best team from the strongest region is the favorite. But I don't buy into this idea that like the quality of Overwatch when you watch it, like you're an art connoisseur drinking your wine. Like, nah, I think that I don't know. I think we have to see. I think if they do keep one trick in this ball comp, I think that I'm fairly sure that comp has like significant liabilities on certain maps, so it could be dangerous for them to one trick. Also, I think Crazy Raccoons, with being in Asia up until quite recently, it actually might be really annoying for them because as Falcons flown out, they could only scrim against the Chinese team, you know. But then if you only scrim against one team, especially a team that hasn't played together in ages, and especially a team has got like Rush as their head coach, so it's probably like not very good.
Oh,
Like there's you wait till you see this week of Uncoachable. I've decided Rush is my new enemy, so I'm kind of
okay.
like I'm waiting. I'm building the fire. So I don't know. You can really like convince yourself that certain things work because you play against a team that can like only play Winston dive or something. So they might fall behind on meta read compared to like every other team in the tournament can scrim against each other, right? Like we're scrimming against the NA teams against Falcons, whereas like Crazy Raccoons are kind of on an island only scrimming against one team. So they could fall behind in meta read in theory, but I would still probably say on form and on player talent, they're favorites.
Right. That would be my next question, because yes, like you can say that like maybe coordination is just like sippy sip wine delusions on how players actually play together. But the argument of player quality, especially in this unrestricted era where you can just build whatever super team you like and basically build a team that has no weaknesses. Maybe you might disagree with both of the Falcons. I would think both Falcons and Crazy Raccoons apply there. Do you think like everything that we see in performance that one might perceive is that A, they have no holes, and B, they just have S tier players that are mechanically advanced in every single regard?
I think it's probably fair. I mean, when we scrim Falcons, you can kind of see like Fielder is like swapping between like 4 or 5 flex spots, and it's like, yeah, he's actually just really good at all of these. Like I think that like I think for like both us and I'm sure it's the same for the NA teams. Like we do have to play to our strengths more than the Koreans. I think like the Korean mindset when it comes to meta is like fuck it, we can just play like any hero. and that often means to their practice being really weird and like inefficient. But then it also means that if they ever do need to swap, they feel comfortable to do so. So I think like that is a reason why I think Korean flexibility is a real thing. I don't think that's like part of the Korean propaganda machine. I think that's probably realistic. Yeah, and I think on paper their rosters are clearly very good, you know. It's really hard to make like a too significant an argument against it.
For sure. Now, we talked about a bunch of teams. I'm interested in what you think about Toronto Defiant, because on paper, they're a team that has 3 of the last Overwatch League winning members, clearly have some of the best South Korean talent on that as well. And considering they're on the other side of the bracket, presumably you scrim them a lot. So how are they shaping up right now?
I would say, generally speaking, we've scrimmed Toronto for months, and it's always been pretty blow for blow, I think. Do you want me to get the actual percentage for you? Would you like that inside league?
Let's go.
Um,
I already love that you track this.
I mean, yeah, I think every team does. I don't think that this is as... If it's low, I'm going to boost up the numbers. Okay, we've scrimmed Toronto 90 maps. We've won 45, lost 45. So it couldn't be like, it's actually statistically 50%. So I don't know. I think they're good. Like, I think that, like, I always feel like Toronto has like an edge in officials, because one of the weaknesses Toronto has is they play some really, really weird comps. And I think at times, like, their practice is also inefficient to the point where, like, once they like realize, like Merit Tracer comps are probably not going to win as the Overwatch League or whatever, OWCS, they can kind of like play the real comps a bit more. But I don't know, I just don't fancy them to win the whole thing. I just don't think they have that like that killer instinct, that like one of the 2 of the maps against Falcons, I'm like, okay, like when you guys are actually playing real comps and you're not tilted or you're actually playing well, I'm like, okay, this is like a really, really good team. Like the tempo they set, like the mechanical plays, like everything looks good. Whereas Toronto, Toronto could be the best Western team. I think that's like really possible if you're allowed to call them Western. But like, I don't know, I don't see what Toronto can do, which Falcons and Crazy Raccoons can't also do, but probably slightly better.
Sure. Are you annoyed that your first game is going to be on at the same time as Ents versus Falcons, and presumably it's not yours that's going to be chosen to be streamed?
Well, both of them are on stream, but only one of them is on stage. They have like multiple channels. I mean, I guess kind of, yeah. It would be nice to play on stage. It would be nice to get a game, but I mean, I don't know, you're running the tournament, you've only got 3 days, like stuff like this is kind of inevitable. Like, I think that I imagine that if it was like playoffs or something, that Blizzard get a lot more control over the times, but because you're doing it inside the DreamHack arena, you know, they're not necessarily like choosing these things. They're told you can only use this from X to X. So I think it's fine. Like it's just, again, it's like one of these things where in a dream world, if we were League of Legends and we were selling out $50,000 like 50,000 seater stadiums, then I can complain. But you know, I'm working for a small independent company at this stage, so I got to kind of accept where we are.
Speaking of which, they have not announced a prize pool floor. All we know so far is that there's going to be a 25% revenue split, caveats after several taxes and whatnot, production platform fees and whatnot, right? What do you think? What are you guys valuing or thinking that this prize pool could get at?
I don't know. My feeling is that Blizzard or Faceit will not allow the major to be less prize pool than the minor. I feel like that's something that there must be some sort of like, if the skin doesn't sell well, then Blizzard will do something. I have no idea what the number will be. I really, really don't know. It was like 75K for the minors. Is that what the prize pool was?
Per region, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
I bet we hit somewhere between 150 to 200K. That's what I would bet.
For sure. Now, theoretically, right? We're currently in a moment that should have a lot of meaning and importance concentrated, right? Like we have Dallas, the first international major coming up. We have the EWC after. That's probably, in all likelihood, going to be the most well-funded tournament in the year-long calendar. So it stands to reason that right now is probably the most focused era of meaning, of money to be made, of everything, right? Do you feel that this is comparable? Like, how do you perceive this moment? How meaningful and how serious competitors take it in comparison to, let's say, something like Overwatch League playoffs?
I think you're right, probably, but I think that the nature of the situation is it's not as serious. You know, like even for us, you know, Psycho still has to do like military stuff, so we can't do 3 blocks a day if we want to because we have like real world commitments. And I know there is a lot of teams that still have players in school and stuff like that. I feel like Toronto and the Korean teams are kind of like can really commit full time, whereas I think the rest of teams are kind of a little bit more. It's our priority, but it's like not our only focus. And I feel like when you have teams that like can't scrum on certain days or whatever, I feel like it's impossible to say that it's like the same level of seriousness, you know?
Has that taken some satisfaction from you? Because I know you're a competitive character. You love to go all in. You love to spend a lot of time on this, right? Does that lessen the enjoyment?
A little bit. I feel like because like the main thing is because we don't have a team house, I think that it's a little bit harder to I don't know, I feel like when you're together, you can like really collectively lock in and you see everybody grinding and everybody puts anything in. But I think that when you're like having to do things remote, I think that it becomes, I mean, to be honest with you too, like a lot of like our team is like, we're now adults, you know, as crazy as it sounds to say. So, you know, I've got a wife. A lot of people have got like girlfriends or long-term partners that they live with. Like people's like priorities are understandably not like all in as they were. Like I was married while I was in the London house or engaged. But what do you want me to do? You know, my wife's in Korea. Like, there's nothing I can do. So I'm just gonna kind of like lock in. Whereas now that we're like together, then I think things become different. And I think that's the same for like a lot of the players. And I feel like it's just like it's fine. Like I don't think it's like a bad thing. Like I think probably hard to argue that a tiny bit more like work-life balance isn't maybe a good thing, you know. But I do think that the way that it is for everyone in terms of like players, teams, I think that this isn't as you can't justify the same level of lock-in when you earn like what we earn now compared to what we used to earn, you know? Like I think that it doesn't make sense. So I feel like it doesn't feel the same, you know, like that week of playoffs in Overwatch League, okay, that felt that was a relentless week for every team, right? Like every hour of every single day we're grinding, like we're scrimming, like everything for that week or two. Whereas, especially because you can't see the other players, I think it's not quite the same as it used to be.
Do you think that it not being this white knuckle, just like trying to work towards a goal, does it open up some opportunities in terms of like creativity, content, shit talk? Like it just comes easier when you don't have to super lock in and like, you know, make your day as efficient as possible, but have some resources for creativity?
It should, but it won't. I mean, it should, in theory. I mean, what we need to become, to be honest with you, is we should stop aiming in to be League of Legends, and we should start aiming to be like Apex Legends, where the money is in the content creator, where the teams have more personality. But I mean, I say every week I go on a podcast, and I talk about this, and I don't know. I think that to shift like the whole culture of an esport it's too difficult. Like even with streaming scrims, I think that everyone doesn't do it now because the major, but I actually don't think it's ever coming back. I think it's actually dead. Like I think enough of the teams really disliked it to the point where I actually really, really think that no one's going to stream scrims anymore. And I think that any attempt to like do content creation, I can even like see it now. You know, I'm going to go on my podcast and I'm going to shit talk the Korean teams and I'm going to say we're going to win, and then like Krusty or someone is going to quote tweet me after they beat us and say, haha, lol, shouldn't have been so. And it's like, okay, yeah, just okay, good job. Like, yeah, you didn't build any hype for the event, and then you like
Right.
take all of like and we're just gonna get into the situation where again, like, there's just like no significant personality within the game. Um, but I don't know. I think I can see like in my head like the only way to fix the esport is to this game will never be compelling enough to sell a 50K like stadium. But if we get like a more of a personality feel to it, more like shit talking, more everything, then I think there's a chance. But I think somewhere the culture of the teams and the players and stuff, it's too hard set to where teams just want to like scrim off stream, and then just kind of not tweet and then just do their own thing.
There's research into how values change across a society over time. So basically what happens is you usually do not have individuals on a large scale change their values. They usually just die out, and then the newer generation has new values that are bringing about, a new culture. Do you think that is an analogy for what needs to happen? Maybe like it's not going to be feasible for these, Korean teams, or rather like everyone that is from that Overwatch era where competitors were filtered based on their seriousness and locking in and doing no content because nobody required it of them. Do you think that will have to be filtered out by the death of their careers and then new talent coming in and hopefully revitalizing that scene in that way?
I think so. I think you're probably right. I think that there will be I think we've already probably seen it a lot, but there is a certain caliber where you're someone that doesn't like to do content, doesn't like to stream, doesn't like to have any personality, but is also not quite good enough to play for Falcons or Crazy Raccoon. You're like that tier, that third or fourth place player. You must just earn no money, and at some point, I'm guessing if you earn no money, you don't do this full time anymore. There would be some logical reasoning there. What we need realistically is we need do you know who is it Imperial Hal or someone from Apex Legends who was the biggest guy, streamed all his scrims, did all this. He became the inspiration where people he earns so much money, I want to be like him. That's what we need. We need someone like him in Overwatch, I think. But maybe that's a generations to come thing, because I think that the old school is and we're a bit locked in.
Look, they're under no moral obligation to apply to this, but do you think that particular shift that you're describing here, do you think sort of Falcons and Crazy Raccoons and these orgs that are paying well and are not doing content, I think I would slightly take Toronto out of it, even though they are not participating in the shit talk and whatnot, but at least they're doing some content, I would say.
Right. Toronto is good. They stream a lot of their scrims. They're pretty open to it. I think that I would say Toronto, more than almost any team, has been really, really open to stuff like this.
Yeah. Do you think they're slightly to blame for providing that lifeline to the joyless?
Yeah. I mean, Twisted Minds is the good example for us, right? Because they just said, yeah, fuck it, we're not streaming any scrims. And that's the thing, right? Twisted Minds earn enough salary because of the nature of their organization to where they have no financial incentive to allow this type of stuff. And the same thing would be true. If when Falcons came over, if we said, can we stream your scrims, they would it would be the most unbelievable thing for them. So whilst some teams can get paid enough to earn a living wage, they themselves have no incentive to help the greater good. Thus kind of creating a system where they can give themselves a competitive advantage. And I think that probably most other teams that were on the fence, if they see a team that's winning with a competitive advantage, they're just going to say, yeah, okay, we're not going to do it either. I don't know. What needs to happen is there needs to be the person who earns the most money in esports needs to be a pro player that also streams. It needs to be a Jinxie, an Imperial Hal, a Nadeshot, someone like this that was a pro player but earns considerably more money from doing content than from the pro player, to the point where that becomes the inspiration. People say, oh, I really I want to be like ChrisTFer. He earns $1,000 a month. No one's ever going to look at that. Whereas if there was a streamer personality that was you could see because you know how much these bloody streamers earn. It's ginormous money when you get it right. Obviously, what we need to do is we need to talk to XQC. We need to say, yo, get back in here, bro. I think if there becomes a one figure who's clearly earning more money than anyone else in Overwatch as a pro player, because he's more of a personality in streaming and he does all the shit talk and people love him, then that would serve as a way to everybody would be okay, yeah, that's what I want to do. But I think you're right. Fundamentally now there is enough orgs which are happy to pay a living wage, but only to 3 or 4 teams, to where those teams can kind of continue as the status quo. It almost feels in a way the esport, in my opinion, almost needs to hit more of a rock bottom if it's possible. We need a little bit more before there is this awakening between everybody.
In terms of that special personality that can become the Imperial Hal of Overwatch, who's the closest, do you think, right now? Is there even such a guy that's trying to do this?
I don't know. Is PGE the closest? Is that where we're at? I don't know. I've never watched a stream. I think we need to get him on Coachable at some point, because all I hear about is PGE. But Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that yeah, I don't know. I don't want to also like get into like the like. I feel like I'm like a circle jerk myself now. Where it's like the community also is really not ready for this type of figure to the point where I think it becomes like quite difficult to do. So yeah, I don't know.
Sure. All right, then we wish you the best of luck in preparation for the tournament, and thank you for the interview.
Thank you.